Welcome back, everyone. This is probably the last time that you'll hear me for today, as we are entering the last lap of today's program. And what a very interesting and informative session it has been, certainly from my viewpoint, hearing from all the speakers and also hearing from yourself as audience members. Of course, just before we went to the break, we were unpacking the global survey that UNIDO and the ETF had worked together on, really looking into the impact of COVID-19 on the demand for skills. What I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention was the fact that that survey will be available for download. And it was right after the session that just was, and also at the LKDF Industry Expo booth. So for those of you who just want to get a bit of more reading done and understand the meaning of the issue. But as you can see, my next line of speakers are up and ready to engage you, because this session is about asking private sector, for their view on green skills, particularly in these digital times. The private sector has and will continue to be, I imagine, the key drivers of economic growth. And therefore, with this huge responsibility that they have, I think it is crucial for us to really unpack the concept of green skills a lot further, and the role that they can play, of course, in transcending us to a lower carbon economy, but also enhancing digital innovation. So quite a huge lineup of speakers that we have to this last big panel discussion for the afternoon. And you've got the first up on your screen. Let me introduce you to them. Enrico, who is from FESTO Didactic, Angeliki De Paulo, excuse me for that, who is joining us from Huawei, and also Samir Ahmed, who joins us from PETRA KSA. Again, thanks so much for the engagements that you guys have been giving us so far through your various comments and your various questions. Keep them going, as we are all here to learn and to share our knowledge and best practice on how best to develop these green skills to create a more sustainable future. And again, on social, to share your experience so far of the first day. Remember that hashtag is LKD Forum. So LKD Forum 2020, all in one word, and we'll be sure to look out for any tweets or any comments that you have on the social media platforms. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. Enrico, I'd like to begin with you. This morning, for those of us who have been here throughout the day, and I imagine that it's all of us, this morning we did see the launch of the skills report. And I'm just interested in the report, and also what green skills are for you in your understanding.
Thank you, Fifi, for the introduction, and also congratulations for a very well organized event so far. And since we have been a long time contributor, we're also happy that you wanted to have us this time. So to your question, Fifi, green skills from our point of view, from FESTO Didactic. I mean, if you look at those two words, green and skills, and if you look at the words and at the definition itself, it addresses, of course, the environment, the planet. So that's on one hand, and skill means, according to English language, able to do something. So from our point of view, is to reduce the impact on the environment. And this is from our point of view in our daily life, so meaning our own behavior, but also in the economy. And this encompasses all these sectors, because all sectors have an impact on the economy, but also overall on the society. This means how we organize, all of us, how to live together, since we only have this one planet that we currently live on. And I don't know how it was in your part of the world, but again, in Germany, we had a very hot summer, degrees going up to 40 degrees. Finally, our kids claim the future with this tag that, you know, for a healthy and decent life. And I also believe that this Fridays for Future movement that we saw coming up last year, and which is still ongoing, but maybe pushed a little bit in the back because of COVID-19, but it will come back. So I also believe that this will have an impact also on all of us. Then if you look at the EU President, Ms. von der Leyen says, calls it the big Green Deal, and we want to reduce the CO2 emissions by 50%, I think, until 2030, and make Europe the first climate neutral continent by 2050. So these are ambitious goals, no doubt about it. But from my point of view, these are without any alternative, and we together have to work in this direction. So looking at the environmental impact, from my point of view, ecology, economy, society have to work together to reflect on this topic of greening and green skills. It's getting more and more relevant. So from my point of view, looking at 80% of the world population that is living in countries without the serious ecological deficits, that all of us have to preserve clean soil, clean air, clean water, and we have to do it on all levels. And this means also all the jobs that all of us generating in the future must also there include greening skills. Is it manufacturing? Is it agriculture or service in industry? And all of those must be also checked. So one example, and then I will close. This is one question. You might ask what we do in FESTO Didactic. What we do and what I co-committed are as a board member is that any kind of products or services that we release to the market, those products and services make sure that those things which I mentioned are tested against this greening skills, and that also our learning systems and our teachware makes sure that whatever we're going to sell in the future, that whatever people learn on our systems also include this in the process. And that's just one small part that we from FESTO Didactic, from the private industry can do to develop those green skills.
Thank you. Thanks for those opening remarks, Enrico, and thank you for your beautiful backdrop of such a beautiful, clean sky there, as a complimentary of the topic that we are discussing now. Also, I believe one of the most notable things about the COVID-19 lockdowns were the hardest in March, and I think was April, was the impact that it had on the skies. Apparently, you know, the sky's never been more blue, and the grass never more green, and the air never more beautifully smelling as a result of all that economic activity that was quite harmful to the environment being locked down. Of course, that's not sustainable because many of us and many economies have had to get back to work. But what it has demonstrated is that it is possible to clean our skies and make our planet a lot better. And therefore, this discussion, as Enrico said, regarding green skills, very, very important for us to be having right now. But in terms of the demand for these green skills, Angelique, I'd like to ask your view here. So we're talking about the demand for green skills is on the rise and is going to continue increasing in the future. But we also know that the demand for digital skills is also a really hot topic right now. And I'd like to understand your understanding of what is the greenest, perhaps, skill amongst these digital skills. Put differently, can AI, for instance, boost renewable energy? Or can a blockchain, for instance, also have a impact on growing the green economy? What do you think?
Thank you very much, Viv. First of all, congratulations for the great event, and I'm very happy to be among this distinguished panel today. So indeed, actually, you set up a couple of important elements in the context of a discussion of digital skills. As has been also announced by the European Commission in the context of the Skills Agenda for Europe, skills to support the green and digital transitions are super important. And indeed, artificial intelligence is a key enabler of also of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which has been clearly outlined in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. As AI, it could potentially contribute to many of the sustainable and development goal targets. Therefore, we believe in Huawei that AI literacy and the capacity of reading and interpreting data can be considered as green digital skills in a way. Of course, we should also not forget forget strategic and leadership skills, which enable eventually policymakers and business executives to set the right incentives and create the right conditions when it comes to cleaner production, cleaner transportation, and so on. We should also not forget about the transversal skills, which eventually enable workers to learn and apply the new technologies and processes also that are required to make jobs more green. And we should also encourage, in general, policymakers to work closely with the industry to raise awareness about the environment, but also to learn how to further develop and work on towards a sustainable development. Then industrial associations should also play a key role in identifying the right skills and work closely with, let's say, training institutions to define university curricula, for example, and so on. Then when it comes to blockchain technology, as you actually rightly mentioned, is one of the technologies that can help to create a more sustainable economy. It helps foster collaboration between consumers, producers, by assisting at the same time people in adopting more sustainable lifestyles, and by helping companies to improve their sourcing and recycling practices. One of the major advantages of technologies is that can ensure transparency and traceability. So to put it simply, blockchain provides a verifiable record of who buys what from whom. So it has this kind of traceability mechanism across the supply chain. So this means that companies that claim, for example, that being resource positive and claim that can reduce their environmental impacts can be counter-checked and verified using blockchain technology. And with regards now to climate action, blockchain is also a technology that can enable accountability and transparency for rapid decarbonization, as it will likely play an important role in improving the accountability and transparency of policies, limiting fossil fuel consumption, for example, and fostering decarbonization, in general. So I hope that I replied to your questions, and I'm happy to elaborate further my points in following the other speakers as well.
In the next round, we're coming to you, and of course, will be also seeing what the audience perhaps wants further clarity on. And I suppose that just to add to what you have said, Angelica, I suppose perhaps blockchain can even help us with the role of the monitoring and the evaluation process in ensuring that some of these projects really do tick all the right boxes in terms of being fully sustainable and environmentally friendly. Samir, to come to you and your line of work. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. As I understand, PETRA does produce air conditioning, heat pump, and refrigeration systems. So in your industry, what are the kind of skills that you need to have, or perhaps produce in your industry to reduce the impact of the greenhouse emissions from your systems? And just to add to that, does your industry adequately have these skills at present?
Okay, thank you, Fifi. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me for this very important forum. As you said before, that PETRA produces air conditioning, heat pump, and refrigeration systems. And as you know, that we have a very great contribution in the climate changes in the world. And one of the greatest, we believe that one of the greatest challenges that we are facing now is the climate change, which needs a green skill development for our technicians and engineers. As you know, that most of the engineers are familiar with the old systems, and these systems are more or less safe to be used. So we believe that any new systems that we are going to use and to implement in our units needs to be very low GWP refrigerant as a low global warming potential refrigerants. So this, unfortunately, most of these refrigerants are flammable type. So these refrigerants need a very big care of safety issues related to the new system design, production, installation, startup, maintenance, and servicing. You know, when we started to change for these new technologies, sustainable technologies, green technologies, we have faced these problems, and we look after to train our people because we are the first company in the Middle East area working in this field. So we try to train our engineers and technicians about the safety issues related to this technologies and the skills needed for this. We support it by making a certain training programs. These training programs ready for those people in order to deal with such systems, in order to increase their green skills capabilities to use these systems, because using these systems will, of course, reduce the carbon footprint generated from our units, and this is our main goal, to reduce this greenhouse gases effect on the system. And this is actually not only in the company, but we have a commitment as a country toward this climate changes requirement in order to reduce this functionality. So the available technicians which we have seen in the market, they don't have the skills to the green skills when we started to perform these systems, especially when the units leaving the factory. So we try to make them all understanding what's going on, what's needed for that. Another thing that we need also, we found that we needed beside their knowledge for the air conditioning system is the computer skills. Why computer skills beside their knowledge for our green skills is we tried, because of the pandemic, to control our units remotely in order to decrease our back and forth for the job sites, in order to reduce to access the units at the job sites, especially for the remote areas. So the technicians who has the good skills in air conditioning system have to have also some good skills also for computer skills, because we tried to make our units to investigate our units with the IoT systems, Internet of Things, so we can access the units remotely and let our engineers train for this in order to get the unit smarter and to get the unit working very well in very short time, and reduce the all the social distancing and other issues to solve the problem remotely before going to the job sites. So this is basically what we need, we found that we need in our technicians to be available in the future to sustain or to use the sustainable technologies and green skills.
Okay. And Enrico, you'd like to respond to some of the things Samir has shared?
Actually, first of all, I fully agree with what Samir just said, also on the point of the skills challenges. And nowadays, actually, what is characteristic is that there are more than 1 million job vacancies that are not filled, simply because employers cannot identify the right people with the right skills to fill this job. So we see it's a huge challenge nowadays in Europe. And so regarding also the certification and how actually competence standardization is very important, I will agree that we need really to look not only on the skills that comes out of, let's say, of formal qualifications, but also we need to give more emphasis on the informal and non-formal learning context, and find ways to recognize them in the labor market. There are great certification schemes out there that can actually prepare job seekers with the right skills to find the job of their dreams, let's say. We have also great initiatives in European level. So, for example, there is the Digital Sign Credential of the New Europass, which is a framework that, for example, universities can use in order to validate also skills that comes out of the formal qualifications. So if you want, there are several European and international, let's say, projects that can support the validation of non-formal and formal learning and skills eventually. So this is my quick feedback on that and reaction.
Oh, no, thank you. Fantastic. And thank you to the audience member that did pose the question on certification. There you go. You can tell that I have been talking for the whole day and my tongue is needing a bit of exercising there. And I believe that the other speakers, Enrico and Samir, would also like to weigh in further on this particular issue. Enrico, perhaps it's starting off with you, and Samir, you can just finish off there.
Yeah, it's an important topic, certification. I agree with you, Angeliki. That is important, but what I'm still missing, and there I would like to ask everybody being present in this forum that we also build up global standards that are accepted also all around the world. I was just coming out of an event with an Indian partner today for lunch, and had another event with some Indian friends last week. And there we also spoke a lot about the mobility from Indian people moving from India to the Middle East, and that sometimes Indian certificates are not recognized in the Middle East. And I think, Samir, you can also tell the story about this as well. So my take on this whole situation is, yes, things are improving, but we, all of us, have to work together. And I also see there UNIDO and the LKDF also as a forum to talk about global standards, that the people that we train, on the example of India, are also recognized with their skills on this example in the Middle East. So certification is definitely important.
Samir?
Yes, I agree actually with both Angelica and Rahel about the certification. We need first to distinguish between developing and developed countries. We have seen this in many countries, in developed countries, but in our area, unfortunately, these are not available. I believe that there is a lot of efforts done, but one of the organizations like UNIDO are working in that in different countries, and this is very important issue, especially when we are talking about something related to the safety, because safety is very important issue here in our technology or in our industry related to this new sustainable green technologies. So the certification is very important, but this is need a support from different organizations. And this is also open another channel related to the public sector. It's not only private sector alone, because the public sector needs to have the correct legislations and the certification programs. So every company in the country working in that field can also apply for that, including their technicians, and they have unified training centers or training programs, so they can get the certification in equal base. So I think this is very important factor and need to be addressed well in the future regarding this matter.
And so I think that we have at this point highlighted or touched on one of the first obstacles, challenges, whichever way you see it, in transitioning to a green agenda, particularly for the private sector. And Samir, I'm just reminded by some of the thoughts that you shared as you were giving your opening remarks regarding the training that you had to put in place at your company as a result of the skills, the adequate skills that you required to, reduce or to transcend into a lower carbon way of doing things weren't there. So I imagine that training did come with additional costs. And now I believe that many companies are also grappling with the additional costs of implementing COVID-19 ways of doing things, because still at this present moment of time, in the absence of a vaccine, we need to maintain some form of social distancing within our workplaces, and there needs to be an increased enforcement of within our workplaces, so which is an additional cost, I believe. And I just wanted, Enrico, just for you to kick off the discussion right now about some of the main obstacles then that transitioning into a more greener way of and can potentially present in widening the skills mismatch that we did speak about at the start. Perhaps your views on what the main causes are, and more importantly, what I would ask you and also ask the panel is how best to overcome them.
Yeah, Fifi, I wanted to start differently, but I have to talk about the costs, because from my point of view, that's the wrong approach, because whenever we speak about training, what is in the back of our mind is costs. And normally where we cut costs first as companies, and from my point of view, I'm making the same mistakes, is in regards to training. But we should flip it around and talk about not costs, but the return of education. For me, education is an investment. And from my point of view, we can also calculate the return of education accordingly. So there, for the entire audience, and this includes me, We should not to talk about costs when it comes to training, but more as a kind of investment. And there, again, I repeat it, there's also a clear return of investment when it comes to the education. And this is just the mind shift that all of us have to work on. So that's the first comment. The second one, and I don't have to, I think, repeat what's going on in all of our mind: scarcity, pollution of water, growing demand for food. Look what's happening now in West Africa. People don't talk about COVID, they talk about starvation. Energy crisis, mobility, on the example that we just mentioned on what mobility, people moving from India, for example, to the Middle East. So those changes are visible, and those changes are visible to the environment, to the industry, but also to the educational field. And again, our task is, from all of us, to find technical innovation to address especially those topics. And from my point of view, this will not only take our lifetime, but it's something that must be ingrained in our DNA, that we have to give to our children. And from my point of view, this is a global transformation. And I see, and I don't know if all of you agree with me, that the speed of change has been accelerated because of COVID-19. Who would have expected that this AKDF forum now takes place in a virtual world? Who would have expected it eight months ago? And we hosted it, I think, 1 or 2 years ago here in our place in Stuttgart. So this is already a good example on the change. And other changes that we see coming up, Angelica, you talked about the digitalization. Also, Samir mentioned a couple of things, remote control, remote working. And this, for me, is the world 4.0. And this is the new normal that we call it. Normally, if I would be in an audience, I would ask the question to the audience: what are the most important issues that and the obstacles? And there I normally talk about people, nature, technology, and education. So what I normally get back if I ask them to raise their hand is that, of course, the biggest obstacle is technology. From my point of view, to be honest, it's not. It's people and education. And let me give you one example why people are important and also the education is important. We can do a lot in regards to technology, but if Samir is implementing a good remote control for his air cons, but nobody can know how to use it because they're scared to use it, they're now maybe my age and cannot work on a mobile device anymore because I need glasses, then I'm scared to use it. So from my point of view, people are the key to make the economy greener and to skill it. And education is, from my point of view, the most important thing to make sure that this is addressed. And then my last comment, maybe, I just had a look on the SDG, I think it's 17, collaboration, cooperation, and partnership. And Angelica, you mentioned it as well, that collaboration is of essence. And again, and I mentioned it today several times, if we keep the spirit, which I see from UNIDO, which I see also today in the panel discussion, that, and also if you take this spirit, then I believe that first of all, we can develop together a green curriculum to make it a standard globally. And my last message is that through those partnership projects, that we also help to develop the greening skills and also during those difficult times that we currently face.
Enrico, sorry to cut you in there. That if this was a face-to-face event, you'd have a lot more time to share your thoughts. I hope next year, but just in the interest of time, because we do have the next session that is about to begin. Can I ask Angelique and Samir, just 2 minutes each, if you could just wrap up your final thoughts on this matter, and Angelique is speaking, beginning with you.
Yes, thank you very much, Fifi. Actually, I fully agree with what Enrico just said, and I would like actually to stick on something very important he mentioned. He mentioned about the importance of technology, and I will actually complement that about the importance of connectivity. Because connectivity actually contributes to enforce policies, including also those linked to Sustainable Development Goals and the Farm to Fork strategy. With connectivity comes AI capability, which, as I mentioned before, is a crucial component of the Farm to Fork strategy. And last but not least, connectivity is strictly linked with accessibility. We need proper training and upskilling of workers to be the priority of each member state's agenda, so that they can actually actively take part in the renewed digitalized society. This is the final remark from my side.
Perfect, and thank you so much for keeping time. Samir, your final thoughts in 1 minute, 30 seconds.
1 minute, 30 seconds. Okay. Actually, we did a very interesting demonstration project using the green technologies with UNIDO, actually. And this project is including in its cost, in its embedded cost, the training. When we make the calculation for the overall cost of the system to go for the new technology, the green technology, new green technology, the overall cost of the system is finally less than the overall cost of using the old technologies. And this is very important to be addressed here, that going to the new technology, it doesn't mean that we have to go for higher cost. Maybe we have some item that we have to need to spend more money over it. But if you look for the overall global cost for the projects, including to transfer from this technology to green technologies, I believe that for sure that the overall cost will be lower than the overall cost of the system using the normal technology, which is not green at all.
Perfect. Thank you so much for those insights. Very sharp, very punchy. One last thank you, Angelique, Samir, and Enrico, for sharing their thoughts and their contributions on this. And I can see that there's quite a lot to say. And at this moment, I'd like to usher in our next round of speakers, again from the private sector, who will continue to weigh in on everything that the private sector currently is thinking on green and digital skills. And as you can see, they are up and ready there for us. I'd like to introduce you to Paolo Del Santo from Hewlett Packard, Johan Raymond from Volvo, as well as Marco Obiso from the International Telecommunication Union. Paolo, I don't see him there as yet, so let me begin with Johan. Johan, I mean, we have heard, I think, the word collaboration, I don't know how many times. If one was keeping tabs, perhaps they'd have 100 Rand in my currency, quite a lot of money when translated to hard currency as well. It's a talking point and a very important point, and it speaks to a multi-stakeholder approach in pursuing skills that are also green. So then, in your view, how best can this multi-stakeholder approach between the public and the private sector be pursued?
Yes, thank you, Fifi, and thank you for the well-run day so far. Well, I think that, I mean, we have been talking a lot about collaboration, skills mismatch, and so on. But in our experience from the Volvo Group, what we have is the strength of the PPDP model, I would say. And it's when it comes to collaboration and partnership, I think it's very important that each and every partner bring their skills to the table in order to assess the market demands, the market needs for a specific country and a specific project. I think that having an experience from running 6 PPDP projects here in the past 7-8 years together with UNIDO and LKDF, we have built up an experience on how we best assess the situation. But there are, of course, a lot of things that can be done going forward, a lot of best practice that needs to be captured. But I think that in essence, it's really important to really bring forward each and every partner's specific competences and knowledge in order to assess the market needs. I think also when we're going into this area, that the LKDF can play a vital role here in even further support the participating partners in specific projects when it comes to relevant research and also as a platform for best practice sharing when it comes to also assessing the market needs. I think transparency, it's also a very important word. I think that we have been really good at that, looking backwards here and also in front in our common projects. When talking about green skills and digitalization and so on, I think also it's important that you already in this stage try to assess the needs of and sustainability module in the actual project and so on. We are trying to do that in our projects, going also backwards here but also forward, looking at having sustainability as a core for the curriculum as well.
Johanna, let me jump in there for now. I do see that you've got quite a lot to share, which is very great. I look forward to hearing more. Marco, just to bring you in here as well, as we really flesh out this debate from all corners of the private sector. And the question I have for you is, how do you see digital skills contributing to the resilience of economies to climate change?
Thanks, Fifi. Can you hear me well?
Perfectly. Ciao, ciao.
Okay. Hello, ciao. Right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I have another connational here, Paolo, which is Italian as well, together with me, which actually we know each other since long time. Well, I'm not coming from the private sector. I'm coming from the UN, and the International Telecommunication Union, of course, is the UN specialized agency on ICT. So I hope we can provide a slightly different perspective here, because I think UN in the whole discussion about climate change, and specifically in the digital environment, is trying to playing an active role, and specifically in ITU, we see, let's say, a clear association between what we consider digital skill at large with what we consider green skills. I mean, I was following the discussion that you had before, and from our perspective, and from my personal perspective, skill is skill, and of course, I mean, it's the applicability of the specific skill that make the difference. So the idea is revolving around try to see how skill can be developed and applied in the real world, in something that we produce, in something that we do, in something where we manufacture. So the idea of having, let's say, people skilled in a specific domain, specifically in the digital domain, has to have an impact on how we operate and how we develop product. And here we have two big representatives from the industry, Volvo and HP, and how we develop products that are green in nature, that are sustainable in nature. And this goes back to some of the areas that ITU and the UN, generally speaking, is touching upon, which is, of course, the greenhouse reduction in terms of the consumption of the ICT equipment, which, I mean, it plays a little percentage compared to the overall, let's say, totality and amount, but it plays still a role within the sector as well. So that is in terms of a little bit of a kind of a preparedness. And in terms of response, I think there is another area that lots of people are forgetting, which is the concept of e-waste, the concept of the electronic waste. So how much we produce from the ICT perspective that is basically wasted and not recycled properly. And I want to shoot a couple of numbers here just to give a little bit of a kind of a dimension here. So in the world, we are producing as a sector, 53 megatons of electronic waste, which more or less account for maybe seven kilos per capita, right? Annually, of course. And this is, of course, is nothing compared to the amount of normal waste and just general purpose waste that we produce. But it's a big amount if we again confine this to the specific sector. So for us, the idea of skill has to be associated on how we use that. And, in areas like, recycling properly, in area like, building a kind of a circular economy where the e-waste can be recycled and given back to the manufacturer and given back to the let's say to the vendors in order to have a little bit more sustainable environment. That is where I think the skill should be put in place. It should be the knowledge that is transferred should be applied in how we actually let's say deliver the services and deliver the product.
Okay. I'd like to take that concept further. in here, Paulo, Marco saying skill, in his view, it really is about how you apply it. And what's your view then of these new skills and your view then into which digital learning can perhaps be different?
So first of all, thank you. I hope you can hear me decently. Audio is always a discussion there. So great to be here and to be part of the conference. HP has been always a leading partner and working with all UN organizations, with Marco here, and of course LKDF and UNIDO are great partners of HP. I think I've seen a lot of interesting topics raised. Some of them about the delivery, of how we actually ensure that these green skills reach the right audience. But I also like, and I noticed some of them, about safety, about the e-waste, and also about standards. These are three elements that supporting the SDG 4. HP has always been very keen to consider about waste and e-waste. I mean, the way we design products, the way we recycle products, the kind of full circle from when it's design, production, disposal. That's a big portion of how we approach not just the creation and selecting of material, but also goes further, supplier, production methods, and as well new technology. In some of our latest products, I think half of the material used, it's coming from plastic in the ocean. And connecting this back to skills, to be able to see upfront this kind of full circle, from the beginning to the end, to the waste, to the disposal and reuse, you also need a different type of skills and kind of capability that will really take everything from material handling, from collaboration, from understanding the local environment, but also a portion that is very important in every training and every set of kind of small exercise we do. It's always about empathy. This seems to be a kind of forgotten ones, even in education and training. And a lot of this is about understanding the environment, the community where it actually goes. So HP has an initiative which is called HP Life. It's a set of 33 courses. It's focused really on developing skills. It's more on how you set up your own company, your marketing activities. And it's remote, it's free. And it also goes exactly in the direction, especially on green skill, on shortening up the supply chain with, for example, 3D print, but also engaging the local community and training with skills, the local community. Just, I think a couple of days ago, we have finished a big kind of competition. It's called Be Change Maker. And for the first time, it was selecting a startup in Africa. There was a specific chapter there about training and skills. And the small startup won, it's called Invicta, won because they help building up solutions and connection between all the different refugees or migrants, how to make sure that learning, information, and training is also shared with them. But the interesting thing about this learning and training, it's also that ultimately, this was not something imposed or defined top-down. It was something that came locally, where HP and other technology partners supported. It's a kind of local implementation of training and skills which really touch the end beneficiaries, using a United Nations or non-profit term. That's very important. So standardization of the training, using all possible technology, remote learning, 3D, virtual reality, but ultimately the beneficiary, the end user of training are the ones which are more important and can help back selection of the processes, of the material and activities. So we really see this as 360. That's a great hint about waste, about standards that I hear today.
I tend to agree with you, particularly about the importance of the the end user, and also involving them in this process of transition. I mean, I think many countries here in South Africa, we have the top-down approach. We've got a tax on plastic bags, for instance. We have the carbon tax that was it was recently introduced, and it's all good and well. But of course, you also need participation from the community level and a recognition from individuals that they also have a part to play here in greening our economy. Johan, let's bring it back to you and just back to a deeper understanding of the relationship between Volvo and UNIDO. You did touch on the PPP element at the start, and perhaps some teachings and learnings from Volvo around what does make a successful PPP in this space, and what could encourage other private sector players all over the world to partner with their respective public sectors or their governments, the green agenda a lot more strongly.
Yes. I mean, yeah, as I mentioned before, I mean, we have been now a long-standing partner together with UNIDO, and we have been running 6 EPDPs in Africa so far, and hope that more is to come. And I got also a question here, I mean, why we decided to team up with UNIDO in the first place and so on. The Volvo Group has been a long-standing member of this of the SIDA-led network. SLSD is the Swedish Leadership for Sustainable Development, and the idea on going into skills development is sprung from that network and our involvement and participation in that. And if we roll back the tape a little bit even more, I mean, what we see on the globe basically is a shortage of key competences that we need for our business in order to be successful and to thrive. And that is in specific here in relation to what we're talking about today is shortage of mechanics that can heavy duty engineering mechanics that could repair and service heavy trucks, construction equipment, and so on. We see a big shortage in that. And also from our customer point of view, we see a shortage of drivers and operators of construction equipment. So in order to overcome that and to remove that from what we see as a business obstacle, we need to do something in specific markets. And through this Swedish Leadership Network, we came in contact with UNIDO, and we started up our first school for mechanics in Ethiopia. And we saw that we had great results. We saw that a graduate that came out from the school was employable. So the difference here is that, I mean, when we're talking about skills mismatch, yes, because that's also very true, but it's also a lot about the actual infrastructure of the educational institutes in certain countries where you have technologies and teachers that maybe are not up to par with industry standards. So the graduates that comes out are not employable. So the reason why we go into this is to bridge that gap, so to say. And we can see through evidence that with our projects, we have overcome that mismatch. And that's something that I can really encourage other private sectors, companies to also look into. Okay, really try to identify what is their business obstacle and how can that coincidence and work together with the sustainability strategies going forward to really overcome something and also pay back to the society and also pay a big contribution there. So that's really a long answer to a short question.
No, a very welcome answer. Thank you so much. And let's stay on the topic that you have raised on addressing that skills match. And I do note what you, or some of the ideas you have put forward about improving the educational infrastructure and how this has yielded benefits on the part of Volvo. Perhaps if I can get the other panel just to comment on this, as it has also come out as a from the panel. So the question from the audience. The question is then your view on addressing the problems of the skills shortage and that linkage between the private sector and vocational institutions. And just to add to that, doing so that investors can turn the equation around such that locals can also in future take over some of the jobs that expatriates are brought in to do. And Marco, perhaps you can kick that off for us. Marco?
Just when you, yeah, I was muting myself now. I think it's fine. Yeah, that's a complex question, and I think I mean, again, from our experience, from the UN perspective, in a sense, I think here, Fifi, there is a little bit of a kind of a fundamental lack of awareness of what means being skilled in a green way, of being skilled, you know, in taking into account the sustainability element. And again, coming back to let's say to the e-waste, for example, 8% of this number that I was given is actually wasted. I mean, in the normal waste management system, and this 8% is not in the developing countries. So the person there was mentioning, lack of skill in developing countries. I mean, it's actually in high-income countries. So that gives a signal that we are not. I mean, and I don't want to give a negative perspective here, but we are not yet, from my personal point of view, educated in thinking sustainable, in thinking green. I mean, some of us are doing that. There is, of course, an increased awareness on that, but the majority of the population has an issue even in identified, how I should recycle or how I should waste properly, any kind of a piece of equipment, whether it's electronic or even electric, right? And I think that the shortage has to be addressed from the policy perspective in terms of also instigate policy frameworks at the government level, but also as the person was mentioning at the local community. And here, I think the civil society can play a role together with the UN apparatus and the private sector to stimulate this kind of awareness raising. And I think if we don't have a kind of a training by doing element, I think it would be a little bit difficult to just pass the training as a knowledge transfer, because again, from our perspective, from our experience, learning is effective only if you see the direct applicability. So there are examples where vendors are actually producing the devices that are low cost because are coming from recycling element and are being given to, as a test program in terms of piloting to the local communities. There are examples where low, let's say, how can I say, consumption equipment is being, let's say, delivered to communities, so then the users can benefit in terms of having incentives from the fiscal perspective and from the let's say the tariff perspective in terms of the fees that you need to pay to the power grid and to the power company. So I think that this kind of example has to match the raising awareness component and the education component, because one without the others would generate a situation where you just deliver training, you even go to the local community, but then again the element of taking the knowledge and saying, okay, I want to act differently, I want to really generate a behavioral change, is not going to happen.
Yeah. Paolo, staying with the whole concepts of skilling and reskilling and upskilling, I think that many can agree that COVID-19 improved our preparation for the fourth industrial revolution, because many of us didn't have a choice, but to adapt very quickly to the fact that things had shut down. But have to say that we're on the right course to prepare this workforce for the future in these areas that we've just been speaking about right now.
it's a good statement to say it's probably forced us. Somebody saying that in the area of education, we made a jump in 6 months of what was expected in 10 years about training, about remote training, hybrid learning. So if I need to look at the bright side, not considering the kind of terrible tragedy on the COVID, this really forced all governments, and that's interesting, across the globe. It's not anymore a discussion about develop or ready to develop country. Everybody faced the same issue, and also everybody had to scramble to find solutions and partnership. And just following back 10 seconds on the connection, why with United Nations in general, why UNIDO and LKDF, the scaling and the possibility to interact with standards, with policy, with integrity as well to local community. That's a fantastic opportunity for the private sector. When we want to look and learn for new things, of course, we want to touch as many people as possible. HP has even a goal of 100 million people to be trained on the fourth industrial revolution. But ultimately, everything starts small. The LKDF sites in Africa, Johan referred to, they are fantastic and they are showing an impact. And we are learning from that as well how we do our training. So the fourth industrial revolution is there, it's coming, it has to do with skills, with 3D printing, with remote learning. We have made huge step forward, and also, kind of average good connectivity. We are going to think about 5G in Africa, for example. It will really help us moving in that direction. Moving on remote training, but also on remote training plus a vocational element, something which is local, again, which helps the local community producing their own services using power generator with solar to create energy and to have the lights in their schools, or to power up local tools for starting a business, which was not there. So I think the idea of this big change that only companies will run for industrial revolution, it will be much more smaller or micro business, which help and start there. And the vocational training and the example with the KDF center really show up. You train locally, you help them, you give them the technology, you can train from having a teacher in Sweden or France, and then have in South Africa a class of students and participate. But ultimately, it's really the local results and local engagement in community. Technology helps, absolutely helps, and we are very happy to be there and to participate with other partners. But ultimately, is really what you do locally and how the local community takes this, implemented, and across the globe, whatever is Switzerland, whatever is France, South Africa, Indonesia. I think that's the biggest difference. And I'm trying to be short, otherwise we'll run up all of the time.
I don't know what it is about this time. It's as though, we're coming to the end of the day and it wants to race ahead of us. I don't know what's going on. But nonetheless, Paolo, thanks so much there. Technology certainly helping. Look, we're able to have this forum on a virtual platform for the first time, and not have to cancel as a result of being able to reach each other's destinations. We are coming to the end of this. And I think I'd like to ask each of you for your final thoughts on this very important subject matter, on the private skills, on the private sector, however, rather, its view on the green skills in these digital times. If there were any parting thoughts that you'd like people to walk with today, what would they be? Johan, I'll begin with you.
I will come back to collaboration, transparency, and upscaling. I think that will be our perspective, the key element for success going forward with our PPTP projects.
Nice and brief. Marco, your point?
I just echo what Johan is saying, because I think the element of scalability is something that is extremely important. And there was an old saying within our environment of think global, act local. And this is, I think, is the capturing of this element. We need to work at the local level, but we don't need to forget that the issue is global, and only, upscaling with cooperation, public-private, can achieve the kind of a dimension, and the engagement of the private sector in a systemic manner is really something that is necessary. Otherwise, only governments cannot sustain, only private sector cannot sustain, and the element here of linking the two aspects within the specific local context, I think it's a winning strategy.
Yeah,
Paolo?
I think it's really covering everything that has been said as well. So collaboration, absolutely. So private and public, UN and non-profit makes a very powerful team to work together. Scalability, of course, it's a local one, but we need to be able to scale up. I would probably add the portion of measuring outcomes as
Yes.
a tracking, as results. And I like also the latest approach of big donors in skills and skill development, like USAID or any other organizations, which tie the investment, maybe, and as well in green skills, into measurable outcomes. Whatever a number of jobs created, whatever is reduction of waste or local creation of energy, and they merge it together. In this way, you can also finally have the investment, the benefit for the private sector that by definition lives by profit, but there is limit, and there is a kind of quantity or of profit which makes sense, and then return into the community, because ultimately this is where our products, our solutions, my next boss, my kids' future and activities will be, and simply not disappearing. So it's really the outcome, and this idea of circular, everything will come back. So that's a big push in that direction. But I mean, that's a great summary of everything. The last one who comes on the speak list is always the one who has more advantages. So thank you.
All right, no, perfect. And I believe I have got one more extra minute, 2 more extra minutes the organizers have given me. And I'm glad that you raised the issue of the evaluation and monitoring, Paolo, aspect of it, and ensuring that, there needs to be some form of agency or some form of measure to ensure that these things are getting done. I'd like to just, however, ask from a local viewpoint, I mean, how would this be conducted? Are you advocating perhaps for the development of a specific institution, maybe in the private sector, that has this task, monitoring and evaluation? How best do you think this can be achieved?
I'm not sure if we want to add a further agency or organization who measure this. If I look into the education outcomes, OECD has a good set of knowledge and skills and metrics which can be used maybe together with UNESCO, if I just focus on that. And I would add the portion of job creation. So the local employer needs. What are they looking for? Why they don't find jobs and people and activities? And how many skills or jobs will be created after a period when the training are done. There is a nice project run in Tunisia called Rühle. It's my project. It's a UNIDO project. Of course, I'm just hosted by UNIDO, and we are measuring the jobs creation after this kind of training. So this is something that is possible, and you just need probably the right metrics. I'm not advocating a new agency. I think we could leverage what existing today, embedded in the projects. When you set something, is what you want to see in 2 or 3 years down the line.
All right, gentlemen, thanks so much for your time and your thoughts.